Chess Lesson 7 by Chess Achieves. By now you should have a basic understanding of how all the pieces move, the 3 special moves in chess, the 3 ways you can get out of check. In this lesson we're going to learn about making material trades during a game. This is an extremely important lesson and part of the fundamentals of your basic strategy as you play the game. While having more material value than your opponent does not guarantee you a win, it should increase your odds of winning. By now it should be clear to you which piece is the most valuable piece in the game. Without question, it's the king. If your king gets checkmated, the game is lost, so you cannot afford to trade your king for anything. We typically do not assign a value to the king for this reason. Most players intuitively know the next most valuable piece. It is also the most powerful piece on the board, the queen. The queen can reach to a maximum of 27 squares from the middle of the board with no obstacles in its way. The queen is worth a trade value of 9. From here it gets a little bit harder to decipher the value intuitively about the pieces. The rook is the next most valuable piece and can reach 14 squares from the middle of the board or 14 squares from the corner with no obstacles. The rook is worth a trade value of 5. The bishop edges out the knight slightly because of its ability to reach 13 squares from the middle of the board with no obstacles. The bishop is able to go from corner to corner of the board, whereas it would take the knight multiple moves to move across the board. The bishop is worth a trade value of 3 for our lessons and our purposes, but sometimes can be valued up to 3.5 in certain situations. The knight, with its unique movement pattern, can only reach 8 squares from the middle of the board. The knight is worth a trade value of 3. Lastly, most players know the least valuable piece, the pawn. The pawn is worth a trade value of 1. Let's cover the basic concepts of trading. You want to make trades that are either equal in value or better in value in order to give yourself a material advantage. Again, having a material advantage does not guarantee a win, but it increases your odds of winning that game. For example, equal trades would be trading a pawn for a pawn, a knight for a knight, a bishop for a bishop, a rook for a rook, or a queen for a queen. Those would all be considered fair trades. Anytime they're offered, a good basic strategy for a new player is to try to make even trades to simplify the game. The less material there is on the board, the less likely you are to make a careless mistake, and the easier it is to calculate what your opponent may be about to do. Let's consider a few trades. They're set up by rank. So for instance, we're going to read across the 7th rank and consider the black army trading a pawn and a knight in trade for a single pawn. In this example, it would be a significant disadvantage for the black army trading 4 points of its army for just 1 point of the white army. In the next example, we see another case of a poor trade for the black army, but an advantageous one for the white army. If you have the opportunity to trade a knight for a rook, this would be a good trade for you, as a knight is worth 3 and a rook is worth 5. A pawn and a bishop in exchange for just a bishop is again another example of an advantageous trade for the white army. The white army would receive the 4-point combined value of the bishop and pawn, or its bishop, which is only worth 3 points. Trading a rook for a rook and 2 pawns is again another example of an advantage for white and a disadvantage for the black army. A bishop and a queen in trade for just a queen is yet another example of a bad trade for the black army and a good trade for the white army. It's important to avoid trades which are poor trades for you and try to find advantageous trades which net positive in the point value. At the beginning of a chess game, both armies start off with a trade value of 39 points when excluding the value of the king. Novice players frequently will offer their opponents free pieces. It's important to try to capitalize on these moments and watch for free pieces throughout the entire game.